something. And there are no immediate solutions, but the other may be 100% spiritually complete without believing in Muhammad or Jesus or being a blasphemer. Perhaps we can try and achieve that. What about the idols of Babylon, the Yazidis? And I think we need to avoid armed proselytism or this in a verbal form. I think we need to preach esteem rather than contempt of others, rather than a vague tolerance with all the limits that has. And I am optimistic about the capacity of men to adjust. I am optimistic about the progress of brotherhood.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to give the floor to the last speaker, Benny Fischer.
Chair, thank you also to all the organizers that were involved in setting up this event, especially for including youth voices, not only in this panel but in the event as a whole. As you can imagine, youth voices are quite crucial when it comes to discussing the future of the Jewish communities in Europe. Now, I sit here representing 35 countries, and I'm the last speaker of a panel, which means that probably I will be the one who gets cut. I would like you not to do so, but I will try to keep myself to the given 5 minutes. At least one of the speakers. No. Okay. Let me start by maybe giving you a little structure of what I would like to speak about. EUJS is an organization, the European Union of Jewish Students, represents, well, youth, people between 18 and 35 of all Jewish denominations, and we are both social and political activists. Therefore, we work within and outside of the Jewish community. And I would like to speak to you about, first, the work we do outside of the Jewish community, as this panel is mainly covering anti-Semitism in Europe, in order to then also speak to you about what, to our mind, to my mind, has to happen within the Jewish community. Now, is there a future for Jews in Europe? This is the main question we are especially being asked from also Jews from overseas, Jews who are not from Europe. They hear the news, they hear the stories, and they are worried. And sometimes I have the feeling that we face a picture that is not close to reality. People imagine Europe to be a horrible place, to be hell. This is not true. On the other hand, what also happens very often to us is when we bring non-Jewish activists to our facilities, they are shocked by the security measures they encounter. So apparently there are two realities that both do not stick to what we perceive to be reality. Europe is not a hell for Jews. I'm confident and I'm very happy to live here in Europe, but at the same time, major parts of the society do not seem to realize in what state our community lives in. Let me now start to point out, speaking to you about our work and work of which we think that has to be done outside of the Jewish community. And I will go from the most general statements to the most specific. Well, first of all, what is the European situation looking like? Europe is the inventor of nationalism. Our continent invented nationalism as a whole. We exported it. But there's one crucial fact to it. Our nationalism stayed an ethnic nationalism. What does it mean? In European societies, growing up in Germany, when I go to friends and I speak to them about the fact that I'm Jewish, they consider me to be less of a German, less of a European. Yes, my family has roots in Europe. Yes, my family has roots in Germany for hundreds of years, for decades. But that doesn't change that narrative. Being Jewish means to be less German, less European. And yes, we all speak about the Christian Jewish heritage of Europe, but how does that look like in reality? In schools, this is not what we teach. When we speak about Judaism, we speak about the Holocaust, and we speak about the conflict in the Middle East. We do not speak about that part of Judaism. We do not learn about Judaism in literature class, in music class, because this is what it means to be part of a European narrative. Now, this has led to a public discourse that is leaving us out, and that is the second point that I want to make. A good example for what is happening, especially now on campuses, is what you can see happening now in the UK. The National Union of Students elected a new president that is coming that has a pure intersectional background. She is, for me, one of the persons that is exemplary for how intersectionality has driven us out of the public discourse. People are intersectional. They speak about discrimination. They speak about joint discrimination. But Jewish rights are not part of that discourse. And the dilemma that Jewish students are there in the UK right now is shocking. Because on the one hand, they can either leave that organization, or they stay in and they have to say yes to the game that is being played. Leaving the organization would mean that you leave it to those people who threw us out. But staying would mean that you justify what they are doing. In order to combat that public discourse, we have been especially engaged in coalition building. A lot has been said about the Muslim community. I will not comment on that, but we do interact a lot with the Muslim community. We are part of the steering committee of the Muslim Jewish Conference. We have both national and international programs on dialogue. But we also work with the Roma and the Armenian community. Things were said about the refugee community. Well, yes, it is true. Refugees that arrive here in Europe have to be integrated. But that also means that we have to ask ourselves how we can be part of the solution for this, not only the ones pointing to that problem and saying it has to be solved. And what does that mean? And I act this with you at that point. In Germany, social workers of the Zentralwohlfahrtsstelle der Juden in Deutschland, basically a social welfare system that is operating there, have been busy integrating Jewish refugees from the former Soviet Union for more than 20 years. Now these people are the ones integrating Syrian refugees. Why? Because both are Russian-speaking. These are best practices that I want to share with you. These are cases that I want to speak about when we speak about refugees. Is it a problem? Yes. But we make it a self-fulfilling prophecy if we only speak about it and don't act. And then lastly, being a student representative, of course, I have to speak to you about what is happening again on campuses, especially in Western Europe, the boycott, divestment and sanction movement, my third point. BDS is becoming a threat in many ways. BDS mostly is a threat because it directly targets Jewish students, it directly targets Jewish identity. And we speak about a group of people who travel around Europe, who organize Israeli apartheid weeks, so-called, who build up apartheid walls on our campuses and force Jewish students to climb over them. A group of students who directly terrorize Jewish students and who, and this is the shocking part of it, gain more and more acceptance. For now, this is a Western European phenomenon. I hope it stays that way and that it doesn't rush out. But if you look at what happened in South Africa, if you look at what happens in Australia now, if you look at what happens in the US, these are shocking tendencies. And these are shocking tendencies to Jewish identity as a whole. Because Jewish students on campus hide their identity. That leads me to the second and last part of what I would like to speak to you about. What has to happen within the Jewish community? Well, first of all, when speaking about the Jewish community as a whole, we have to understand that changes we can see happening in society as a whole do also happen in Jewish communities. We speak about a post-democratic European society. Let's speak about the post-democratic Jewish European society. We speak about post-structuralism, about young people leaving the communities, about decreasing community membership, and therefore a direct danger to Jewish representation, politically and non-politically. Jews, again, do not sit on the tables anymore. They don't organize themselves anymore. They don't speak up anymore. Now, why is this an issue? Because the third generation that I'm representing here is a generation that grew up in a different reality. It is the generation that grew up behind fences. It is the generation that never got to know another reality than the one that we were being brought up into. Going to school and being guarded by policemen, by military forces, that is our everyday life. So what happens in the community? And this is the third and most crucial point that I would like to make. And I think that this event and also these panels are very representative of what is happening. Anti-Semitism, due to the direct acts that we encounter, unfortunately, in our everyday life, becomes a determinant factor for what Jewish identity looks like. Yes, we sometimes have to build the fences around our synagogues and around our kindergartens higher and higher. But if the only topic we can speak about within those fences stays anti-Semitism, then we shouldn't even consider building those fences anymore, because then we have lost that battle already. What do I mean by that? Well, let me go back to the first example I gave you. Going to a Jewish school and only seeing the security forces that guard it is wrong, because this is not our everyday life. The guards in front of my schools were my friends. I knew them by first-name basis, and they knew me. When I came late to school, they realized it, because they knew me. And when I didn't come at all, they realized it all. But going into those schools and not seeing those fences at all, ignoring them, is another danger. The solution to a Jewish future in Europe, therefore, lies in between those realities. And that means that, and I'm sorry that I have to make that point, but it is, I think, very crucial, if Jewish leadership from all over Europe meets in one room and discusses a future for Jewish communities in Europe, and every panelist is male, but for one moderator, then this is a problem. And then also this is a danger for Jewish future in Europe. If there is only one youth voice included in a discussion about Jewish future in Europe, then also this, my friends, is a problem. Because Jewish future is being written by our generation. And I demand that this is being considered. So is there a Jewish future for Europe? Of course there is a Jewish future for Europe. How does it look like? That lies in our hands. And I'm very grateful for the fact that you gave me this podium to voice that concerns. Obviously, I'm very grateful for the partnerships we find in Jewish communities, but I would like you all to take these points into consideration. Thank you very much.
Grazie dell'intervento.
Thank you very much indeed. Now I'd like to call upon the chair of the second panel to join me on the podium, and then we will organise questions and answers as part of the second panel. Thank you very much, though, for that extraordinary debate, and thank you to all the speakers.
Det blir inga frågor och svar nu.